Hey everyone! Oh my gosh, new show already started off with a little bit of a glitch, but that's you know that's the way it is. I loved that opening. I was like dancing a little bit. It was really cool. I have like a line going across my forehead because I was wearing a baseball hat all day as I was helping my oldest son move into his new apartment, and I was organizing all day and unpacking boxes and then scurrying off, getting kids and doing work with Moms for Liberty, working on the summit, working on social media. So it's been a very full day for me. And that is why we are starting so late today. Normally, we are going to air, at least we're going to air an episode every Thursday evening. And that would be at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. But I had to push it back a little bit today because my plate was full. And I'm really excited about the show today because we recorded it last week. It's with the CEO of the Conservateur, Jayme Franklin, a 27-year-old, gorgeous, beautiful young woman, young mom, and Gen Z. She born and raised in California. Okay. And she's a conservative, strong, beautiful woman. Her, owns her own business and still with her little baby girl all the time. She's surrounded by her family. She has a suit. Oh my God, her husband, they're so adorable. If you go to the Conservatoire on Instagram, it's just beautiful. And after this conversation, I'm going to pull up a few of the images that I downloaded. Just gorgeous. She has a beautiful family, and I love the Conservatoire because it's so stylish and chic, and it shows uh, conservative women, femininity. It's something different because it's speaking to culture and telling young women that you can be conservative and still be a fashionista, still love clothes, love to do your hair, all of that stuff. Like it's because conservative women are gorgeous. When you look side by side and you see the conservative women, then the moms, and then you see our counterpart, it's like these two things are not the same. And I think in this era, like women are more and more empowered to say, yeah, I'm a conservative woman. And, when you look at the woke women, I mean, I'm pretty darn proud to be a conservative woman. I do not have purple hair. I've never shaved like half of my head. Um, I do not, scream and cry, wail when I lose or don't get my way. We just put our heads down and we think, okay, you may feel sad about it, but we have more work to do and we're going to win the next one. And so, it's been the joy of my life to hang around tough, smart women my whole life. My mom's a strong Puerto Rican woman, my aunts, my uncles, all of the women in my life have been very strong. So, and then I was a military spouse, and so uh, military families, military wives, just the best. Sometimes your husbands are deployed, and you're having dinners together, you're giving the kids baths, you're hanging out, and you're a community. So I am no stranger to my best friends all being very strong, but very beautiful and feminine women that are not afraid to take some time off of their career and raise their kids. Like it's something that is really important to them. And I have friends that work full time and they do everything that they can to be there with their family, and they have great spouses that can work from home too, or can, do the, share those duties, especially when the kids are younger. um, in a new time where sometimes, hey, maybe I have friends that are doctors and their husbands can work from home more, and they're devout Catholic, have 4 kids, they are physicians, and they're still volunteering in the school, and they are at present all the time. So there's no there's no one way to raise a family, but I think the key is you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. And sometimes something has to give. And the best that you can do is make sure that the thing that has to give isn't your kids. And so in this conversation with Jayme, that's what we talk about. Because I mean, it's what's crazy to think is I have a child that is just 1 year younger than Jayme, and that's just mind blowing to me. I am a grandmother. I already have a adorable, totally like love of my life 2-year-old grandson. And I still have an 8th grader, and I still have kids in high school. And that's because I took Charlie Kirk's advice before he was old enough to give it. It was that I got married young and I had more kids than I could afford. And I'm telling you, I have had a wonderful, blessed life. Those early years where we were barely getting by, those are some of my best memories. And now we are doing very well. And it's everyone says, "Oh, if you have kids young, if you have 5 children, like you're never going to make it. You're never going to arrive. You're never going to have your dream house. You're never." That's not true. It's not true for folks that are okay rolling up their sleeves and working really hard and just going for it, and have a good sense of self, and they're willing to pay a certain price, and you know give up some things at some point so that they can have things at another point. um and I think that's sort of what with conservatives are really good at: delayed gratification. And so as a mom, there were things that, yeah, couldn't travel, couldn't see the world sometimes. Although in the Navy, yeah, we had to. So we did get to travel and see the world. It wasn't always in the most ideal of circumstances, but we did. Um, but that trade-off, I got to spend all this time with my kids that I would never get back. And guess what? As they got older, and because I was a stay-at-home mom and my husband could he could pursue and work hard, and he didn't have to worry about who was going to pick up the kids, who was going to take care of things. I took care of a lot of things, and because of that he was able to have success. And so I'm listening now a lot to the things that Erica Kirk is saying. Obviously, we all are. I mean, I just heard that the Charlie Kirk show is it is the most watched podcast in the world right now. It's you know um so they tried to you know they thought that they could crush our friend. They thought they could crush a movement, and they've only unleashed something else. And so previously my show was called Unplugged, and frankly, we were running like, what could we call the show? What could we call the show? And the idea of Unplugged was the conversation you have when you're at my mic here, when the mic is turned off, unplugged, you take your shoes off, and you have like a real conversation. So many times I would talk to people, I would do an interview, and it was, you had, and anyone who's if you're a parent and you've been on Fox and Friends, or you've done a local interview, you know that you've got like just a few minutes. And so you're preparing, okay, I'm going to have maybe 3 minutes and a sound bite, and I've got to like pack it in and make it count. And you do the best you can, and you get better. We've gotten better at it, but at first it's just really hard. So then sometimes after that interview, you sit back, feel like relaxed, and then you start talking. And then that's like the real conversation. That's where you're talking about, like, this is what's happened to my family. This is how I feel. This is what I'm going through. Can you believe what's happening here? And I think that sometimes like those are like the best conversations. So those are the conversations I wanted to have. But recently I was talking with CEO of Moms for Liberty, Tina Deskovich, who's amazing and who's made all of this possible. And she kept calling my show. She's like, your show Unleashed, Unleashed. And I was like, hold up, wait a second. Tina, that's a better name. I'm claiming that. I love it. And we left, and it was like because just we're trying to like, how should we brand this? What are we doing? And that just said it all. Unleashed. And Tina said to me, Scarlett, you're now unleashed. You can have the conversations, like that fits what you're trying to do, that fits your personality. And I feel like it does. I've been doing this now for over 5 years. If you don't know my story, I was just a regular mom driving around in my, my Honda Odyssey minivan, super busy with my kiddos, volunteering in schools all the time. Can't, with 5 kids, and I had 7 pregnancies. I had 2 miscarriages. So a lot of pregnancies. Really, my focus was on my kids and my family, and the only thing that I ever posted about were pictures of what I made for dinner, like, "Oh, doesn't this look pretty? I made a paella," or, "Look at it, the Christmas tree is up," pictures of my kids, things like that. Like, I had 3 followers on Twitter back then. I had no idea what I was doing. Facebook was just a place to, you know, like, see what's happening in your friends' lives and your family's lives, look at pictures. And um, so then, COVID happened. And now I already had a background in political science. My field was political science, history. I went to law school. Then I was married, got pregnant. I dropped out of law school and I was going to go back. But then I actually went somewhere where this is the daycare where I would drop my son off, and I started bawling, and I walked out, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't miss this time with him. But I can always go back to law school, but I can't always raise my son. And so to do that, I had to put him in a baby Bjorn and clean apartment buildings and take odd jobs while his dad was in medical school. But it was worth it. Again, these are, as I'm helping my son unpack in his adorable apartment with his new bride, I thought I was exactly where he's at, and it's a magical time. Yeah, they don't have a lot of money, and they're very grateful for mom who went grocery shopping for them and got them some food. And my son's just starting out he's just finished medical school, and he's just starting this whole journey. And it's just, so I'm right now telling this, I'm feeling so nostalgic right now. And the conversation that I'm going to air with Jayme Franklin, that's everything that I'm talking about, all that, remembering where I was when I was in my 20s, and that I was the oldest of 4 kids, so I was sort of born babysitter. I was kind of I I loved reading and philosophy, and my dad was diehard Republican, loved Reagan, US Marine, so I don't even know a time where I wasn't a um patriotic conservative who Reagan was like my idol. I was a Rush baby. Listen, my dad turned me on to Rush Limbaugh as soon as I started college, and I can't. I would record on the cassettes when I couldn't listen to Rush. I raised my kids on Rush. I can remember my son getting on a table one time saying Rush Limbaugh. Um, so I had a political background and all of that. I just thought, my time had passed. I chose a different path. I'm a homemaker. I I'm not going to be involved in politics. I'm not going to have like a career, especially a career involving law, government. And God said, "Nope, Scarlett, I'm not done with you yet. Like, you were born for a time such as this, or such a time as this." I knew, like, all the things that I'd gone through my whole life had led me up to the moment. The first time I spoke at a school board meeting, even before then, when I just my persistence, um, the values that I was raised with, and just like in my justice, liberty, like things had to be just, liberty, freedom were the most important things. Our country is the best in the world. It's worth fighting for, it's worth dying for. And love of God, family, country, these are just like burned, seared into my heart. And what happened with COVID, it just it just shook me to my core. I was broken and I would never be the same again. But that is exactly where God needed me to be. That's exactly what needed to happen. And so, you know, all things can come to good if you just trust and have faith. And easier for me to say now than back then when, gosh, there were days like I in a fetal position thinking, are they ever going to take the mask off our kids? Are our kids ever going to have a normal life again? Are we going to have a normal life again? So, it's the fight was worth it, but the fight continues because once finally the masks were off, figuratively, I mean, literally, the masks came off figuratively. And I finally saw what was happening in education. And I realized this is why things weren't the same. This is why I can't I can't help my kids with math anymore. This is why my kids, when they're reading, they're guessing. They're not, and I had to spend summers teaching them phonics. The first child, my fourth child, my daughter, all of my kids could read very early, and because I worked with them. By the time you get to the fourth kid, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder, especially her older sister. They're less than 2 years apart. So I had toddler in diapers. I had, um, 10-year-old, and then I had an elementary school and the baby. And so I didn't have as much time to do all the work I had done with the other kids, but I trusted they, preschool and then kindergarten. I realized that at the end of kindergarten, my daughter can't read, and she can't write her name. Everything's backwards. And I had volunteered a lot in the school, but doing lunchroom duty, playground duty, arts and crafts, things like that. And so I spent the summer and I taught her how to read using phonics. But what I realized is they were using whole language all that time, and that's why she couldn't read. And so we moved all of my daughters to a private Catholic school, at least for elementary, and then we would move them to middle school later. That was the plan anyways. And I didn't understand what was happening until then COVID. It's like, okay, so I hadn't heard of Lucy Calkins until before then. I didn't know about CRT. I didn't know about gender ideology. I didn't know about comprehensive sexuality education and progressive, the progressive teaching of human growth and development very early, and doing it in a way that was different. So all of those things that was opened up to me, and through the activism and the skill set learned during that activism and running for school board, and even though I didn't win, I didn't give up and joined Moms for Liberty, and here I am now, and done a lot of things, a lot of things over the last 5 years. Things that I'm most proud of: ambassador program to my state legislative committee. I was a surrogate for the Trump campaign in Wisconsin in 2024. I traveled on the Trump bus, and I was the only woman speaking on most of the stops, the only female, and the only not. I wasn't a politician. I held no office. I was just a mom coming with all my binders and books, the receipts. And by the end, and I traveled with Kash Patel. We had Vivek. We had a lot of folks that are currently serving in the cabinet. I got to meet Charlie Kirk. A lot of, like, Sage Steele. Everyone they were coming into Wisconsin a lot. I was a delegate, and through that, I learned a lot. I met all these great people, and I realized I knew something. All of these really connected, plugged in, intelligent, former members of the Trump administration, and I knew something they didn't know. I knew what was happening in schools. I knew the curriculum. I knew I knew the background of it. I could show them things that blew their mind. Literally, I would show, and they'd be like, "What is that? This can't be happening." And so that's what we have to realize, that we may look and think, "Well, I'm not Charlie Kirk." Well, Charlie Kirk wasn't Charlie Kirk until he stood up and did something. And now we have to carry the torch. You can just be a regular person like I was, and whatever your skill set is, you can use it, and you can be a masterpiece. You have no idea the things that you can do once you start saying yes, and once you just sort of say, like, I am so scared, but I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to stand up. I'm going to speak up, and I'm not going to be silenced anymore. I will tell you that in my community, I rarely, at this point, I don't get so much hate. People don't walk up to me. Most of the time, people walk up to me, say, "Thank you. Can I take a picture with you? Love what you're doing." thank you for fighting for our kids. And even people that don't agree with everything, they're like, thanks for at least doing something and for standing up for what you believe in. So you never know what will happen. You never know what the future holds. And as I get older now, it's time to pass the baton and pass the torch. I see a lot in our movement, and I think in any organization, any sort of movement, it can be really hard for people to build up a bench, to pass the baton, to recognize that we're they're younger people, there are new ideas, there are issues that they care about that no, they're no longer like our issues, but they're still important. And what I want to start to do is really reach out to Gen Z and to younger. I don't know what is the name. What is the name that they now give to the next generation? I forget. I'll have to look that up. But we've got to. We've got to talk, communicate with, talk to, and be a voice for the moms that have 2-year-olds like Jayme. We've got to what do they care about? What about women that want to be that want to be married, but they're like, where, what am I going to do? I meet so many young conservatives that are like, I don't know where to meet people. I want to, this is what I aspire to. And so after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, it took something so horrendous like that. It took that for, I think, a lot of young people to wake up, and a lot of us to listen, to really listen to what he said and take it to heart, that we've got to start telling young people, get married, have babies. Think about your future. Like if raise your sons believing that I am going to have to take care of a spouse, of my partner, and the kids, and that we will have. So I've got to be responsible. I've got to think like a provider. And for women to not look at being a mother and being pregnant as a punishment, as like something you want to avoid like the plague. So instead, to talk about how great it is. And I'll stop talking and I'll get to the interview, but these are some of the topics that Jayme and I cover. And we have some exciting news about the Moms for Liberty 2025 Joyful Warrior Summit that is in Orlando, Florida. It is October 16th through the 19th. We just announced, every day we're announcing more and more speakers, but we are about to announce the launch of something very different at the summit, where we are going to have social media influencers and Gen Z moms, just something different, something very different, because new media is where it's at. When I talk to fellow conservatives today, I was just talking to the Iowa chapter chair and fellow social media guru Jen Turner. We were just talking about all the only shows we watch they're on Instagram, they're X live streams, they're on YouTube. New media is like our basically only source of information now, various sources of new media. And that's like where it's at. And a lot of conservative women, they are unleashed on new media, and I'm here for it. So we've got conservative Barbie, we've got Jamie Franklin, we've got Caitlin Bennett, We've got, I'm forgetting some. We have Angela, and I won't say her name right. Angela B. She just moved to Orlando, Florida, and she's great. We've got some really cool things happening, and there'll be some more official announcements this week about it. This week, or yes, I'm pretty sure this week we've announced some, and more are coming out. So it's really cool. On top of all of the great speakers that we have, and panels, and we've got Jennifer Say hosting a panel with three girls that have been fighting for their dignity, privacy, and their opportunities in athletics. So she's doing a panel. These girls are the Davids versus this whole woke Goliath, and how they have overcome, and they have, they're winning. Now, is it perfect yet? No, far from it. There's a lot going on, but there's hope. And then we have a debate rhetoric for the Republic. We have Babylon B. We just announced Seth Dillon. He came last year. He was great. We have James O'Keefe. We have Corey DeAngelis, who I talked with. Oh my gosh, we have so many people. We have Sarah Parshall here. There's so many, and we have Alex Stein, who is so funny. We have many leaders in Florida. We have Byron Donalds. We have Erica Donalds. So many more people. I'm Southeastern Legal Foundation, Kim Herman, lots of people. So it's going to be great. And I won't keep naming up all the names because I'll miss one. So now I'm going to stop talking, which is very hard for me to do. Okay. Puerto Rican woman. What are you going to do? I'll just keep talking. So we're going to play the recording of me and Jayme Franklin. We spoke last week, recorded this, and we wanted to start off paying our respects and honor to Charlie Kirk. And we talk about him a lot in this interview because it was so fresh. So fresh for us. And I think I hope you like it. I think you're really going to like it. And I can't wait to talk with Jayme again. I can't wait to see her in person. She's just lovely. And you have to check out the Conservateur. And I will put up the links so that you can see her work. And you also, if you haven't registered for the Moms for Liberty Joyful Warrior Summit, do it, especially if you live in Florida. Yeah, you definitely need to be there. It's going to be amazing. I love it every single time. So without further ado, let's go to the interview with Jayme Franklin, CEO of the Conservateur. Hi, everyone. This is Scarlett Johnson with Moms for Liberty Unplugged. And I wanted to start off this episode to talk about Charlie. This week has been very difficult for me, and I'm sure it has been for many of you as well. We lost a mentor, a hero, way too young, 31 years old, a young dad, husband, 2 little kids. What happened is still shocking for me, and it's hard to talk about. He wasn't just a national leader. He felt like family to me, to my kids, even though I only met him a few times. He was in our lives so much. We watched his show all the time. My daughters watched his show every single day, and they're going to miss him greatly. Kids looked up to him. They respected him. He was just a mentor, a hero. He gave them the courage to speak boldly, to defend America, and to love freedom. His assassination has left us brokenhearted, but not broken. Today on Moms for Liberty Unplugged, we're going to honor Charlie by doing exactly what he taught us to do: stand unafraid, uncensored, unwoke, talk about truth, culture, and raising the next generation. And we're going to stay in this fight because Charlie would want that, and he showed us how to do it. So today I would like to welcome someone who I admire and who represents Gen Z very well, a young lady who my friend said, "Hey, you have got to see this page, The Conservateur," and showed me your page, Jayme, and I loved it. I loved it immediately. I'm going to kind of introduce you a little bit. You have been in the trenches. Even though you're only 24 years old, you've already been in the trenches.
27, actually.
Oh, 27. Now you had your child when you're 24. So you're 27. Still very, very young. Very, very young to me. You've been in the trenches. You've worked the Trump campaign. You've worked other campaigns. You are on Fox News all of the time. And you are the founder and CEO of a website, The Conservateur. And I'll put up information to follow on Instagram. You graduated from UC Berkeley. So you survived California, growing up in California, and UC Berkeley without blue hair, without falling in with the woke mob, and you never use these or pronouns, which is pretty big deal. Again, you've worked in the US Senate, the Trump campaign, the Trump White House. You're regularly on Fox News, and you understand how our culture is being weaponized. So your story is inspiring, refreshing, and I think that you're going to be able to help us process the grief that we're feeling, especially young ladies, while reminding us that the fight is far from over. So Jayme, welcome to Unplugged. Thanks for joining me.
Okay, thank you so much, Scarlett, for having me on. What your guys' organization has done has been incredible. You know, it's a lot of moms that I look up to. You guys are such fighters. And now that I'm a mom as well, I want to be a fighter just like you guys are for my daughter. So I'm so thankful for all the work that you guys have done over the last few years. I think you've just been pivotal in this movement with getting a lot more women onto our side.
Thank you. And, you know, we need more young women like you. Because, you know, our kids are getting older, and it's really important that we build our bench, and that, you know, your daughter is now 2, you said, and it won't be long before you're deciding preschool and kindergarten, and you have more children. And then that's when you are really kind of in the thick of it. When I was your age, you tried to find a good school, but I never considered that my kids were being indoctrinated. And now you have to think about that. You really have to look into where you're sending your kids to school.
There's a lot more obstacles. I think my mom is Vivian's grandmother, is so involved in Vivian's life and my life as well. I'm really thankful. My mom was an incredible mom to me. So I've just tried to model her. And she's like, there are just so many more obstacles raising a child in this day and age, whether we're talking about the social media, the TV shows that you have to be watching for. I think, you know, what RFK has done is expose a lot of stuff in the medical industry. I remember even when I had to switch over to formula for my daughter, I had to order it from Germany because our formula is so terrible in the US now. And then on top of it, you're right. Like schooling is a concern of mine that I have. And I think a lot of people are choosing to do homeschooling, but, you know, I do want socialization as well. So there's just, I even went to public school for a few years. I mainly went to Catholic school growing up, and my parents were like, we never had to worry about you going to public school when we lived in, you know, a safe neighborhood that was well funded. That was really the only main concern. And now I think sending your child to public school is a huge risk, to be honest. And that's not fair for a lot of people that can't afford to do private school education. So there's definitely a lot more obstacles being a mom in this day and age. But that's why I'm so thankful for organizations like you, that you guys are leading the pathway and informing women so they know how to raise their kids, you know, biblically and conservatively and proud of this country.
Thank you. You know, it is, when I went to Catholic school, it was about getting out of Milwaukee public schools. My parents could not afford at first to send us to a private school, and finally our parish paid the tuition for myself and my brothers and sister. Were it not for that, we would have been trapped in some of the worst schools in Wisconsin. And because I was able to get that education and then go to high school, go to college, eventually law school, and be the first college graduate, education was a life raft for me. And I talk about that all the time. So you're right that it's unfair that there are so many families that are kind of stuck in these bad public schools. But then if you're in the suburbs and you think, oh, great, I've worked hard, I've bought a house in this great school district. Well, you come to find that they're not as exceptional as they used to be. They are no longer, they no longer have courses for gifted and talented or challenging kids, because those are racist. And then there are a lot of indoctrination, a lot of gender ideology, a lot of kind of woke nonsense. And so then, you're wondering, what do I do? Do I pull my kids out? Do I homeschool? Do I put them in a different school? So it is more challenging than it needs to be for how much we spend on education.
I completely agree. And I think, what's been so great about this pivot in the Republican Party and in the conservative movement, and, I definitely want to bring Charlie Kirk into this as we honor him in this episode, but he really made the family the center of this movement. And I really fundamentally believe that. That's what I'm fighting for every day is, to obviously lift families up in America, make it easier to have a family, encourage people to have a family. And so I think, as a conservative movement and organizations like you, removing those obstacles and making it easier for parents to get better, education for their children. I think like tax credits for having more kids is amazing. Obviously, like my generation is facing like a real cost of living crisis with buying houses and everything. And so I think that needs to be the center of the conservative movement. And I think if we do that and have more and make it easier for younger people to have children, there's a lot of woke ideology that's going into why people aren't having kids that we also need to address. But there is a certain segment of the population, like so many kids my age are like, oh, I'd love to, they're just getting married and they're like, oh, I would love to have kids, but I can't afford a house right now. And in reality, like I'm doing it and we don't have a house yet. Like we're gonna make it happen. And people used to raise kids in caves. But I think, when we're giving people, a better opportunity to start a family, you're going to see more and more of that. And I think, the conservative movement needs to be centered on that, whether it be fighting the anti-natalist agenda, but also, on the cost of living stuff, making it better and easier for our generation to, have many kids and be fruitful and multiply.
Charlie Kirk said, have more kids than you can afford. Yeah. I just watched that clip. And I'm going to tell you, when I was 24 when I had my son, 23 when I was pregnant, just first year of law school. His dad was in medical school. And, obviously we were married, but it was like what not expected. Never pro-life my whole life, never once thought about having an abortion. But I did wonder, like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? And you know what? You find a way. His first room was just this little sunroom. We managed apartment buildings. I'm telling you, there's nothing like having a kid that will inspire you to do things that you never thought possible. And my husband says all the time, were it not for having this large family and 5 kids, he doesn't know if he ever would have had this sort of drive, the hunger to do more, to provide for his family. You can, when you're in the situation, you can find a way. Kids can bunk up for a little bit. Family can help out. There's where there's a will, there's a way. And I am so grateful I had my kids younger, because I enjoyed all of it, and I get to enjoy being a grandmother. I have a 2-year-old grandson already, and I'm young. I can. Frankly, I tell my kids, like when we're at Disney World or something, I'm like, keep up, come on, like.
You sound like my mom. My mom's like, I was so much better than you. I was so much stronger than you at your age. And I was like, it's so true. My generation's a little weaker compared to you guys's. But I'm so glad you brought that up, Scarlett, because I'm a huge believer in that. I was in the same circumstance. Drake and I had just gotten married, and I wasn't even thinking about kids, to be honest. And I found out I was pregnant, and it was just the best thing that ever happened to me. And to be honest, I think a lot of people in my generation overplan stuff. People wait now like some people wait 10 years to get married, and it's ultra planned. The proposal's even planned. And so, Drake and I think there's a lot of magic sometimes to having an unplanned circumstance where you just go and make things work. Kirk. And like you said, I think when you bring a child into this world, you fight for things in a different way that you never would before, because you have mouths to feed at the end of the day. And I think that that's been just a huge catalyst for Drake and I. And like I said, for me in the conservative movement, it's inspired me. And I think becoming a mom has made me understand the conservative movement so much deeper and what we're fighting against, because I understand it at a new level. There's a whole world that opens up to you when you become a parent that frankly, I don't even think you can understand before. And that's what my daughter has provided for me. And everything I do is for her. And I am, similar to you, I'm sure, and similar to a lot of your viewers, we're outraged what's happening in this country. Look what happened to Charlie Kirk. We can't allow, your grandchild and your children and our viewers' children to grow up in this country. We owe it to them to fix a lot of these issues. And so that's what I'm trying to do right now with Gen Z women. And, there's been a real crisis with a woman my age not wanting to have children anymore, not wanting to get married. And that's from the feminist agenda that's really infiltrated into the universities. A huge reason why I started the Conservateur is that I saw a lot of that propaganda popping up all over women's magazines. I mean, you can't even read Vogue anymore. It's garbage. It just bashes our country. It bashes men. If you're white, you're terrible. If you're cisgender, which I even hate saying, like, what a stupid word. If you are heterosexual, I guess you're bad. And it's this climate and this culture, especially on the female side, has really been overtaken. And it's a huge threat to Western civilization. If people are just living selfishly, narcissistically, nihilistically, I think is a huge thing as well. And, family provides happiness and fulfillment on a level that your career can never do for you. No mimosa brunch is worth, sacrificing motherhood. And by the way, moms have a lot of mimosa brunches. Your life does not end when you have children. You make it work. And it's even more exciting to go out and do things. But I think, I would love to talk about Charlie. And I think the number one thing that stood out to me about Charlie Kirk is I think he's looking down from heaven right now upon us. And he only cares about his family right now, because I think that is the thing that you saw was the center of his life, was faith and family. And he was truly someone, and you see in the videos, I mean, they bring me to tears, the videos that Erica posts, because he was an amazing father and husband. And wow, what a life he carried with his career and everything. But that was the most important to him.
That's what I really admired and loved about he and Erica, that they were willing, and that is the big deal, that they were willing to kind of be out there for conservatives and what we call normies, for everyone to see, to live, to show that this is what it's like to be married, and it's fun and it's great, and we're happy and young, and we have our young kids. And I saw videos of him going to the zoo and putting that out there, so that to make motherhood and fatherhood great again. Because now when you watch TV shows, if the couples have kids, they have one kid. We grew up with, your mom and I grew up big families, all the shows, big families, lots of kids. Now you struggle to see a family with even one, maybe two kids. And this cultural message being sent that to women, that having children is a hardship. It's so hard. You should have your whole career first. Not keeping in mind the biological reality that there is a certain time in which you can have children and have a more uneventful pregnancy and have a whole healthy term, labor, all of that. There is a finite time in which we can have children, carry children, and we can do so safely and make sure that, that our children are born healthy. And when you tell a girl, hey, don't have kids till you're 35 or 40, have your career, all of that, you are robbing them of motherhood. They're going to probably have to try to find another way, or it'll be very difficult. And then I've talked to too many women who've said, I wish I had more kids, or I wish I had children at all. I should have been thinking about marriage and motherhood much sooner. I have 5 kids, and I lament not having more. I'm like, darn it, I should have had one more. I wanted to have one more, and I didn't. And I wish I had more.
Well, now you have your grandkids, so it's almost like all over again.
I get to do it all over again. Yes, yeah. Which I love. But and let's rewind a little bit. When did you first hear about Charlie Kirk? Like, when did Charlie first come on your radar as someone younger than myself?
For Gen Z kids, I don't remember politics without Charlie Kirk. Like, he's been at the forefront of the conservative movement since I can remember, because that's, he started this up when he was in high school. And so he's a few years older than me, but he was just leading the charge from the beginning. And I met him for the first time when I believe I was like I was at UC Berkeley at the time, and I was young as well. And I remember I got the opportunity, which I'm so thankful for. I didn't know him personally super well. I'd met him a few times, but the first time I met him, I was at a pretty private dinner where he talked at length about a lot of issues that were happening on his college campus. And I was just sitting there mesmerized by the way he could speak and how passionate he was about those issues. And Erica was his girlfriend at the time, and she was sitting right there. And I just will never forget. I remember her just looking so adoringly at him. She just loved him so much. You see that in every single video. They truly had a real love story. And that would be, my message also to Erica. Nothing can comfort her in this time, but a lot of people don't find the love that they had in an entire lifetime. You can just see that truly through every interaction they have, the way they spoke about each other, and they modeled marriage and they modeled motherhood and family so well. But Charlie was a fighter on college campus. Obviously, I grew up conservative, even though growing up in Northern California, I grew up like pretty, it wasn't as like political at the time. So I was always pro-life because I grew up Catholic. And so I believed in, a more traditional lifestyle. But I wouldn't say when I was younger that these issues were really under attack in the same way that they are today. And so when I was at Berkeley, that was my first time coming across the radical left. I started in 2016 there when Trump was elected, and just being, inundated with this radical leftist, like truly lunacy. And unfortunately, when Charlie Kirk was shot, I was shocked, but I wasn't surprised, because I saw the evilness on a lot of these college campuses, and that these people have been, fed a message that's creating the environment rich for violence on their side. I saw that, years ago in the making. And I felt like it was a complete attack on everything that I believed and everything that I was raised to believe as a Catholic. And my parents actually immigrated from Canada. I always say they escaped socialism. But my parents were very proud to become American, and that I was the first American in my family that was born in the US. And I was always very proud of that. My parents were as well. So the attack that I saw at Berkeley's campus, it made me, go the opposite way, where I became super involved in politics. And I always wanted to go into
What was that like, to be involved as a conservative in politics on a campus like Berkeley? I mean, I can't think of probably a more progressive or far left campus.
Yeah, my parents were kind of ahead of the curve at this, but they were very concerned for my safety. So when I would go to a lot of these events and stuff, they were very nervous all the time. And I was careful about, for my safety, because Antifa really originated right outside of Berkeley's campus. And so Antifa has been really, on our campus they were on our campus the entire time I was at Cal. And if you look back at a lot of these videos from when I was at Cal, when Trump was elected, there's firebombing. They're always creating violence. And, with Berkeley, it's a real juxtaposition to what, Berkeley, they pride themselves on being with the free speech movement in the 60s. And so what it became today, where you can't even go to their campus and speak without major threats of violence, is so disappointing.
The not so tolerant left.
Yeah, not tolerant left at all. And it's really sad too, because I was an American history major. I love American history, and the history that I was taught at Berkeley, thankfully I was aware that this was an indoctrination thing. So, but it was just not an accurate depiction of the U.S. holistically. Really, when we talk a lot about like the CRT agenda in a lot of the schools, I saw that firsthand. They really hyperfixate on, the negative parts. And, America's not a perfect country. We've had obviously bad moments throughout our country, but I think the story of America is that we're a country that's, led itself to justice and freedom for all, and that we've become the greatest country on earth through a lot of the values that our founding fathers obviously created in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. And so I would say that was my main takeaway from Berkeley at the time. But I think the last thing I'll say about Cal is it made me a better conservative, because I totally understand where these people are coming from on all of their issues. I totally disagree, but I understand their arguments. And a lot of times the left can't understand our arguments because they don't take time to listen to what any of us believe. I mean, you even see in the wake of Charlie Kirk, these people are painting Charlie Kirk to someone he was not at all. He was, a very principled conservative, but he was a mainstream conservative. That I think the amazing thing about Charlie Kirk is he could build coalitions with everyone in the conservative movement, whether you were, a hardcore Bible Belt believing conservative, or you were a more moderate kind of someone that's strayed a little away from the Democratic Party. He brought them together, similar to how President Trump has. And so he was a mainstream speaker. And what the last thing I'll say, and then we can move on because I could go on for days, but what's really scary to see the people celebrate and believe that it was rightful that he was killed for his views, because you and I have the same views. So would these people that I know celebrate my death? Because I have the same views as Charlie Kirk on probably basically everything. And so do a lot of Americans, as you saw in this last election. I think 72 million Americans probably have very similar beliefs to Charlie Kirk. And,
yes, in Moms for Liberty, and we've been targeted by Antifa more times than I can count at our summit in Philadelphia. It was the first time I've ever felt very, very afraid. When we were surrounded, we had to have private security. We had to have the Philadelphia PD. We had to have Homeland Security. And we weren't even allowed to leave and eat the building at one point. I was accosted. Someone tried to grab me. I've never felt that level of evil in my life. So and it was the whole trans Antifa groups, these men parading around as women, they would yell very vulgar, terrible things, wish our death. It was terrible. And I know it's just this small fringe, but this small fringe, like our Vice President J.D. Vance said, they are supported in this pyramid scheme. Mm-hmm. And so this small fringe, they don't represent the majority of Democrats, but the majority of Democrats don't condemn them enough. And like 26% actually encourage this kind of behavior, which is it's wrong. And we have to call it out. We have to say what happened to Charlie can never happen again. And these words, they are inciting violence, and we've got to find a way. We've got to do something about it, while also being like Charlie. Like, he's the MLK of our time. Everything he did peace, dialogue, conversation. Didn't want to reduce to violence, didn't want to send other people's kids into war, didn't want a civil war in America, wanted us to come together. And you were right when you said he could talk to someone on the far right, and then he could talk to Dave Rubin, who I watched Dave Rubin as he said, Charlie's the one that brought me from the progressive left. Mm-hmm. I got a little more moderate and a little bit more. You gay Republican, whether you were, Baptist minister, he could sit at the table and say, let's talk about what we agree with. And I really appreciate that about him. And I know with my own kids that after sometimes they'd come back from high school or even now college, and they would kind of have one of these lefty ideas, I would find an episode of Charlie Kirk and say, watch this. He can do it better than me. And in his style of debate, and the way that, like in a campus like Berkeley or Madison here in Wisconsin or anywhere in the country, in the world actually, because he went to debate in other countries, they'd come forward and they'd come like, oh, I'm ready to go against the great Charlie Kirk. Yeah. And within moments, he, in a very respectful and kind way, but forceful, he kind of demolished the argument. And it was a joy to watch, and it's sad. The world. There's a very big hole in this world right now, and my heart goes out to Erica, and they looked so happy, and she did love him so much, and he was a good dad, and I don't even know what else to say. It's hard not to cry. I feel like I've cried all the tears that I can.
We've all and he has kids around my same age, and that was the first thing I thought. And Erica mentioned during her speech, and it's like, how do you tell your 3-year-old that daddy's never coming home again? I can't imagine having to tell my child that. It's heartbreaking on every single level. And they had the best dad, and that was taken from them. And this is not, I think, something that, I've kind of seen the left do. And something that's bothered me is they're like, well, I didn't agree with anything with Charlie. You don't have to say that. Like, you can just say, this is wrong. I looked at when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and she lived a full life and passed away, I think, from what I understand, very peacefully. And I remember when President Trump just eulogized her on the spot, even though they're on different sides of the aisle. And it's like, they never can do that for our side. And to me, this isn't a both sides issue right now. I think if any prominent liberal politician or influencer were to go to Hillsdale, to Liberty, to any conservative leaning campus, Alabama, my brother's at Alabama, and there's a lot of people who support President Trump down there. They would have no problem going. There would not be any safety concerns. Meanwhile, if, you or I were to go on to another campus and they would announce we need 700 policemen to line up with riot gear. Yeah. So to me, I think that just speaks volumes. And by the way, the left doesn't even have anyone who can go and do what Charlie Kirk does for their side.
No,
we believe in that. I loved going to Berkeley because I loved being surrounded by people who disagreed with me. I found that more interesting. I like to go out of my bubble. I like to debate ideas. And you could see that Charlie loved that. He loved to be challenged intellectually because he was such a smart guy, and he was a people person, and he had so much energy. And what he did for especially young men up to this election cycle, I don't think we would have won the election without Charlie. I think President Trump said that he was a huge part of changing so many hearts and minds I have younger brothers who I'm very close to, and they were devastated by this, just like I was. I didn't even realize how much Charlie, because they're not in politics the same way that I am. And I didn't even realize the effect that Charlie Kirk had on them and their friends.
I think it's been a little harder on the young men because they have, especially, if you're young, white men, but I think all young men, they have so few figures, prominent figures saying, be a man, be masculine, and a good man takes care of his mother and takes care of his sisters and takes care of his wife and will provide for his family. That's being a good man, being a Christian man, being a family man. Who delivers this message these days in such a tall, handsome, smart young guy comes in and tells you it's okay to be a man, and I'm a Christian man, and I love my wife, and I love having kids. That has an impact. It resonates in a way that's different.
That was the first thing my husband said, because we've been, thankfully, like ever since his assassination, I've been inundated with videos about him. And so has my husband. And that was the first thing he said. He goes, I want to be like Charlie Kirk when it comes to being a husband and a father. That was the number one thing he told me. And it was so moving to me when he said that, because I'm like, what a better example to have. And that's what's so painful about this is that, he was the perfect example to all of these young boys. And he would have been an incredible father. And the fact that was taken away from him, he didn't get to see his kids grow up and be that father figure for them, is heartbreaking to a level I cannot begin to describe. And we need to figure out in this country, because I want, I'm in the same vein as Charlie Kirk, as I'm sure you are, Scarlett, where I'm like, I want to build bridges and bring this country back together. That's been my goal with the Conservateur. But I think what's been really hard for conservatives in this is that this has shaken us to our core, because it's like, one, how do we build bridges with this side that's willing to shoot our people when we're talking and then celebrate it on top of it? And yes, I think you're right that it is a fringe group of people, but you wouldn't see that on the opposite side for us. And I still think that it's just, I want to be able to have these debates and build bridges. It just feels like it's getting more and more difficult, but I'm hoping that in the wake of this, there's a lot of maybe normal Democrats on the side that go, something is not right here. And we really need to start addressing this transgender issue, because it seems to be at the root of a lot of violence over the last few years. And I don't think it's a coincidence that when I was growing up, even in Northern California, I grew up like less than 30 minutes outside of San Francisco. And I did not hear any of this transgender. I didn't hear any of this LGBTQ agenda. And this has become now a center of American life over the last few years. And in return, we've seen more and more people be put on the hormones and go through this gender reassignment and be indoctrinated into this ideology that I think really preys upon people who are struggling with themselves and some mental illness issues. And we've seen now that lead to violence. So there needs to be a thorough investigation. And it's not about demonizing or hating on people. I as a Christian, we want to love everyone. A piece of me, I think a lot of Christians felt this way. We wanted to hate Tyler Robinson. And at the end of the day, we're sitting looking at this boy that it looks like he had been indoctrinated, and his life is in ruin as well from this, and his family is in ruin. The whole situation is beyond tragic. So we need to figure out how we're stopping this insane ideology that's preying on young people who are struggling right now.
When I looked at Tyler Robinson, when I still look at these pictures, I don't hate him. Mm-hmm. I do hate the ideology. I want to know who did this, who indoctrinated this kid. How did this happen? How do children, and we know online, if you talk to a lot of detransitioners like Chloe Cole, and I have a lot of friends I've met along the way, and they will always say it started by they were on phones too much. They were on, these Reddit chats, these kind of, these groups, that parents like me, I didn't even know existed. And then in school, when they come in and they say, oh, I'm non-binary or I'm gender fluid, they're celebrated. And the teachers celebrate. And then, so a kid who's kind of awkward, shy, quiet, often locked up in their room, maybe not as social, has some underlying, mental illness, maybe autistic, maybe just going through a hard time, maybe just feeling different. They are kind of plunged into the zeitgeist and sucked in. It attracts the most vulnerable. This transgender ideology, it's like it traps the most vulnerable kids. And that's what is particularly insidious about it, because kids that need our help the most and need the medical care, the psychological care, the Christian counseling, the parenting, they need something real, not this affirmation, not, oh, it's okay. Yeah, you think you're a boy, you think you're a girl. Sure, we're going to affirm this. You don't affirm anorexia.
Yeah.
You don't affirm bulimia. You should not affirm a child that's clearly struggling with mental health issues. And it's a travesty. It's a travesty. And with what has happened to Charlie, I feel this is different. I really do. I think that there are a lot of people that have opened their eyes and they realize, you know what, this can't continue. This is, I stayed quiet for a long time. Strange. I don't agree with it, but I'm just trying to be kind and polite. We can't be polite anymore regarding what's happening to our kids.
It's not real love, like you said, to affirm people on a lot of these delusions. What's real love is to give people honest truth and get a lot of these people the help that they need. And it's really tragic how many people have been swept. I think the internet has come with a lot of radicalization, a lot of people who they're preying on, like we said, kids that are going through mental illness. And, I don't have any inside sourcing on this, but if I had to guess, being a woman, I did not understand that this is a huge issue, but I've been learning more and more about this issue. But the pornography that I think is being infiltrated to people that are even before they're in puberty is really messing people up. And it's leading towards violence, particularly among young men. Because a lot of women like myself, I've never even seen any of this, but this is a whole world that we're not even aware of that's happening behind the scenes, and that men are getting more and more access to, and young boys are getting access to, and even some girls. And it's really leading towards huge mental health crises. And I mean, even what we're seeing on like this dark web, watching Charlie Kirk be assassinated in front, how traumatizing was that as a country, that this is what social media has led to. You know, we think of like assassinations that occurred back in the 60s. I know, you know, a lot of people have been relating that time period now to this. People didn't see that on a camera that's over and over again on your feed. I mean, I didn't want to see that, and that was thrown in my face.
Yeah.
And so I really do think, you know, we need to start looking into, parents need to be way more vigilant about what their children are looking at online. There needs to be a lot more guardrails. I frankly think pornography should be completely outlawed across the entire country. I don't think a lot of these like Pornhub and stuff should be able to continue operation. I think it's been so detrimental and damaging to people in Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and even older people that are going through this. And so, like I said, a lot of this is happening online right now. And I'm a big advocate of free speech. I want to be clear with that. I'm a huge advocate that you should be, even those people who are tweeting out the most horrendous stuff about Charlie Kirk, I like that they're facing some consequences for that. I will be clear, but it's their right to say it, as horrendous as it is, because it's free speech. But I do think that we need to look into what is going on in these radicalizations and the things that people are being exposed to.
Well, when you talk about pornography, unfortunately, there's pornography in our kids' classroom.
Yeah.
It is in it. And when I say this, and I don't have some of the images, I'll pull them up.
I know the images you're talking about.
But yeah. The images, I have to carry around books and lesson plans, because if I say this to a normal person, they don't believe me. Yes, in kindergarten, there are images, sexual images, inappropriate images, images of genitalia, lesson plans where kids have to label all the parts of a genitalia and then talk about things that I don't even really want to talk about right now. I feel uncomfortable talking about them as adults, say words that I don't want to have to say. I can't tell you how many times I've had to say the word penis as I talk to school board members. And I'm like, I'm embarrassed. I don't want to talk about this. But since you're putting it in a second grade classroom, I guess I have to. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. We are robbing children of their innocence. We are making them grow up too fast because an ideology says that if you're normal, that's a white privilege. And so I guess we should shove all of these terrible things onto kids way too young. They should shoulder these horrible ideas like you're racist, you're evil. We're going to talk about all of the bad things that have happened in our country and never talk about the good. We're going to confuse them. Tell a little boy that if you like pink, you must be a girl. Tell a girl playing with a car, if you like cars, you must be a boy. And you have a little one. I've had 5 little ones. They play dress up. My son thought he was Spider-Man. He had a 101 Dalmatians costume he really loved when he was 2. I did not think he was a dog just because he liked to wear this costume. And I didn't feed him food on the floor and say, nice puppy. That was pretend play. Like, it's just this upside down world and this bad ideology that we are up against. And if you're going to start that young, introducing these ideas and pornography and sexualize kids young, then you are making them vulnerable to predators. And they're like prey on a platter. And that's what has happened time and time again. These tragic shootings, this tragic violence, it is coming from, it seems to me, sort of a singular source. Kids that have confusion about their identity. They've taken drugs, hormones, they're online too much. And all of this is affirmed and celebrated. Instead, they should have gotten help. And we might have a very different circumstance if these kids got the help that they needed.
I completely agree. And I love what you brought up about your son with Spider-Man and the dog. Because I've always thought that it's funny, my parents always joke, they're like, oh my gosh, when we were little, and now I'm like all girly, but they're like, when you were little, we were like, is she a lesbian? Because I never wanted to went to Catholic school. I wanted to wear the shorts. I wanted to, do more of the boy stuff. I was a big tomboy actually for a long period of time. And I'm so thankful that that didn't exist when I was young. And I have obviously great parents that would never have pushed that on me. But how terrible is that to tell a girl, just because you like things that aren't particularly girly, that doesn't make you less of a girl. And I want my daughter to know that. Vivian, like, she loves putting on her dress and all of this stuff. And she also loves playing with trucks. She's a girl. We don't need any questions. You don't need to confuse kids about that. You are a girl, but as a girl, you can like whatever you want to like. If you like more of the boy type toys, I'm happy to buy you it. There doesn't need to be these strict things around it. When we know as Christians biblically that we are born with the body that God intended us to have, it's very clear, and you don't have any confusion around that. And I'll say, when you're talking about these people putting this like pornography in children's schools and in toy stores and exposing kids, that these pride parades that they expose these children to horrendous, totally inappropriate materials. A lot of these people are not like you and I. They don't have children, actually. And so when I think there's a reason why a lot of the parental rights movement became a very Republican issue, is because so many parents started getting on board with the conservative movement, because we're a movement of parents and for the family. That's what we center our entire, movement upon. And so a lot of these people, I saw a great tweet that was put out that really hit me hard, because in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, I kept seeing all the moving videos of him with his children. It makes me cry. The one where his daughter runs up to him on the Fox set and he gives them a hug, and someone commented below, and I'm like, isn't that the truth? He's like, this, for a radical leftist, this means nothing to them. They don't have a family. They don't have children. They don't care to have a family or children. They're nihilists, and they hate all of this. So while that moved us as, conservative family-centered people, that's not moving these lunatics on that side. And they will expose things to your child. They want to radicalize your child in schools. I go to my bookstore right down the street where I live, and I go into the bookstore, and I can see books about normalizing gay parents. And I remember on Easter, I'm like, do you have like a Christian Easter book for my daughter to read? No, nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, so we see it's a religion for them. I always say that. I talk a lot about this. I saw that at
Yes,
Berkeley.
it is.
This is a religion. There's a real religiosity behind their movement. And so they've been able, with their pride flags and their BLM agenda, pushing that upon us. And then meanwhile, you've seen Christianity taken out of the public square. And, what I'll end on, Scarlett, is along with, women like us standing up as moms, we also need preachers, priests, and pastors. The church needs to become more vocal, because when they're screaming their ideology, we need to be also screaming ours in return. And the more young people we get back in church and get offline, and a lot of those people are isolated and they have no community, and they find their community online with these psycho Discord chats of craziness. And the more we can bring kids back into the church and provide them with the community there and make people feel loved and welcomed, and you don't need to agree with everything we say, and we love you no matter what, but we're going to tell you the truth, the better our country will thrive.
Yes. And when you have kids, it's okay if they play video games a little bit. Don't let them have unlimited access. Restrict their access to phones, iPads, computers, video games. You are the parent. You can do that. You can just shut down the internet. You have that power, and you need to use it, because you're safe. A good parent trains a child the way they should go. And one final question. I know we'll have to do this again, because talking. Charlie was so focused on Gen Z and our kids. How do you see what you're doing at the Conservateur? How do you feel like you are going to shape the future for young conservative women? Why did you start this, and where are you going? What is your hope?
Well, I think Charlie influenced me as a woman. So he had also an effect on women, but he was, like you said, he was an example for young men. And so his impact on young men and leading them towards like what it means to be a man, what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a father. He set an incredible example, and he spoke to those issues every day and a lot of men really identified with that, my husband and my brothers included. And so at the Conservateur, we want to do that for women, because men and women are different. We believe that. And we need to honor femininity. We need to, tell women the beauty of motherhood, the beauty of marriage, and also talk about the biblical roles that we have as women in society that we must honor, and that provides real meaningfulness and passion and real fulfillment in people's lives. And so that's my number one goal for the Conservateur. I don't have like some massive, political agenda behind the scenes. I really just want, I see with my generation in particular, you've never seen more mental health crisis, more women in therapy, on antidepressants, on SSRIs. There's clearly a crisis that's going along. Women aren't wanting to have children. They're celebrating. I mean, the fact that we have to celebrate, my mom brought that up the other day. The fact that we celebrate abortion like this is a demonic thing that's happening amongst women in our country. And a lot of the people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, I also noticed were women too, which was very, very concerning to me. So we have a huge crisis with women. If you look at in this last election, unmarried women, who tend to skew younger, obviously voted for Kamala Harris plus 40 points. Married women voted for President Trump plus 2 points. And so I'm not saying every woman needs to get married at 23 like me. I understand that, you have to wait to find the right person. But I think that there's a trend with that, because I think when people are in a union and in a happy marriage and bringing life into this world, there's going to be more normalcy and more beautiful values, and people who are back in churches as well. And so, long story short, I want to change the culture for a lot of people. It's not even about politics at the end of the day. It's about creating a happy and healthier society for young women and women of all ages, to be honest, as well.
And I really appreciate that you are addressing the number one issue: culture. Mm-hmm. Culture. The Breitbart had said it. Politics is downstream of culture. Mm-hmm. For too long, conservatives were focused on the politics, and facts don't care about your feelings, which is true. I get that, but feelings don't care about facts either. We have to address the culture. We let it go. We let the schools go. We let the culture go. We let the left just seize all of this territory. They marched through the institutions just as they predicted that they would back in the 40s. They did it. Mm-hmm. And the last bastion of Western civilization that they had yet to conquer was the family. Mm-hmm. And that is now that the family is under assault. Yeah. And with God on our side, with right on our side, we will win this. We will win this.
Agree.
But we have to fight to win. You have to stand up. And by that, I mean, not physically, but you fight. You fight in the school board. You fight just in conversation. Make sure that don't silence. Say, I'm mourning Charlie Kirk. Don't be afraid to say that. And wearing a MAGA hat or a Moms for Liberty t-shirt. You shouldn't wear that and then assume that you're going to get assaulted. It should be okay. We should say it's okay that I can express my political opinion without fear of assault or assassination. We need to get back to the country that values free speech. Everyone values it, everyone, and respects it.
I completely agree, Scarlett. I really appreciate you having me on. I want to do this again. This was such a great conversation. And prayers to Charlie Kirk's family. I'm so happy we had the opportunity to talk a lot about him. It's very easy to weave him into any conversation because he just had so much impact in our movement. And I'm thankful to, have community when we're going through all of these times. And I really appreciate everything you've done, Scarlett, and would love to come back.
Great. You have to come back again. I know your daughter's about to wake up from her nap, so you need to be, now you're on mom duty. Yeah. I really appreciate you coming on and having these important conversations. And I'm so grateful for young women like you that are at the forefront of these culture wars. And I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye. That was an amazing conversation with Jayme Franklin, the CEO of the Conservateur. She gave us insight into her journey, but this Gen Z insight, which I get on a regular basis because I have 4 daughters, 4 Gen Z daughters and a Gen Z daughter-in-law. But it's something that I really wanted to share, that I think, as a mom, as now a grandmother of a 2-year-old, we need to have these important conversations with our future moms and our current young moms and dads. But with Moms for Liberty, you can see like the things that they care about, and they haven't bought their first home yet. So they're wondering, how am I going to buy my first home? Wonder about childcare, worried about the health of their children, worried about what they're eating, worried about vaccines. They're doing such a wonderful, beautiful job. They're just far more in tune than I ever was. They question a lot more than I ever did at their age. And because they have to, because things are different. What I love about Jayme and what I love about the Conservateur is that she's carrying on Charlie Kirk's mission, because she is exposing young people to something different, making being a mother, being a conservative, cool again, great again, through culture, through style, through fashion, through faith, through cool memes and reels, you know, things that just are younger and more relevant. She's able to speak to her generation, and they're listening, and that's wonderful. She's a message of beauty and truth. Be a woman, be beautiful. Don't shave your head. Don't let your arm hair or, you know, armpit hair grow out. That's gross. Like, be a woman, you know, be feminine, have babies. And, you know, she has a degree, well educated, has a bright future. She's just putting it on pause to be the best mom that she can. And in this day and age, how great is it that with technology, she can still have this career, she can still have this work, and she can be home with her mom. And then she's got this great husband who is taking on the role of provider and caretaker. And that doesn't make her less his equal. They're equal. They're partners. Marriage is a partnership. Just because you're staying at home raising your kids for a little while doesn't make you any less than. In fact, I know that most men really, really appreciate that. And the message that Charlie had for young men was appreciate that. Because I think in a narcissistic world, you could raise a lot of men who think, I don't want to work that hard. Like, she can work too. We'll just put our kids in daycare. Our kids can just go to school. And, you know, then that way maybe I don't have to shoulder this burden alone. And what he's saying to men is, it's not a burden. It's not a burden. Like, you're going to find more joy in your role as protector, as provider. It worked for humankind for a long time, and it will continue to work. And so, and that's not to say that every parent needs to be, every mom needs to be a stay-at-home mom, because now I'm a working mom and it's a little bit different. But I think for everything, there's a season. And when there's a time where, hey, you're all about the mom duty, like you're taking care of little kids, maybe there's a different season as your kids get older where you have to take some time off and really focus on kids. You can have it all, maybe not all at once. And, you know, I think you're happier when you can find balance. But you know what, this is just my opinion. That's the importance of having these conversations. There are conservative women that could say, you know what, I'm a full-time working mom, and I've got a great husband who co-parents with me, and we're doing a great job. Fabulous, that's great. But what has happened is that a lot of women feel like they're less than if they decide to take some time off and raise their kids. And it's important to send the message that you can still work and be a full-time mom. It's a little harder. And I like Charlie's message. Have more kids than you can afford to have. You won't regret it. You won't regret having your kids. You won't. And you'll find a way. But there's another message to our leaders that we need to find a way to make it easier for kids to buy a house. We need to think about the cultural messages we send, the very materialistic messages that we send as parents that might make a child feel that if they can't buy a brand new house, have 2 cars, phones, all the gadgets, and go on a vacation once a year, then they can't have a kid. Like this very materialistic kind of nihilistic vibe. I think we need to send the message and remind ourselves, or tell them that, you know, when I had you, I didn't have it all together, but I did get it together. And having children sort of helped me with that. So we want to encourage, get married younger, have kids younger than what age society is telling you, which is like 45. Like, oh, get married when you're 50 and then maybe have a surrogate baby. No, you're not a Kardashian. It's a lot harder than you think to do all that stuff, and a lot of questions about that. I'm there's a finite time where you can have children. That's just biological reality. And, when you meet your partner younger, you grow together, you grow up together. And it's a beautiful thing. Maybe you meet your partner later in life. That's beautiful too. But we just want to send some different cultural messages that it's okay. It's okay to struggle together a little bit, to get married, live in an apartment. Those were like the best years of my life. Some of my happiest times, really. Some of the happiest moments of my life were when we were struggling to put enough change together to get some tacos from Taco Bell. When you first buy that house and you're painting everything yourself, and you have to figure out how to fix things, and you're going to Goodwills or estate sales to buy furniture. Like those are happy times. Those are really happy times for me. And it's okay that things aren't perfect. It's okay, because God bless my perfect mess, right? I love my kids. I wish that I had more of them. And most people, when they get to a certain point, when their birds are flying, their little birdies are flying away, they're like, oh, I should have had one more. But and it isn't just about the selfish thing the kids give you, because believe me, you're giving a lot. Okay, like 80% of the time, it's hard. You're giving a lot, but it's just so meaningful and so purposeful and so necessary for the survival of Western civilization. We kind of got to raise that birth rate up. We gotta have kids again. So I'm glad that we could talk about Charlie and his message in this way, and that we're not talking about just all the terrible things, and just talking about the difference that he made. Remember what Jayme said. She doesn't even remember a time without Charlie Kirk. She's so young that as she grew up and started to pay attention to politics, she can't remember a time that Charlie wasn't sort of a leader, someone that she looked up to. 27 years old. So Jayme, I know you're taking care of your little girl right now. That's precious time. I am going to fly to see my 2-year-old grandson this weekend, and I can't wait. So excited. Thank you for joining us on Unplugged. You have given us insight into your incredible journey, but also provided a way to see Charlie's mission carried on through culture, through faith, through beauty, through truth. And to everyone out there watching, listening, we grieve, but we don't give up. His legacy is for us to carry on and fight, fight, fight. Never give up. We have to speak louder, love harder, and fight smarter. Always remember this, as we say in Moms for Liberty, we don't co-parent with the government. That's something that Charlie loved about Moms for Liberty. And we loved working with him. And we will continue to love working with our allies in Turning Point Action, Turning Point USA. In Wisconsin, I worked very closely with Charlie Kirk's Turning Point. Without Charlie Kirk and his many, many visits to my state, we would not have won the presidential election. Wisconsin would not have been called for President Trump. It was the hard work of the Republican Party groups like mine, Moms for Liberty and Turning Point, did so much. And all of the grassroots that knocked all those doors and worked so tirelessly, so hard, fighting for our country, fighting for Western civilization, fighting for a vision. And Charlie, his life was all about that vision of America that he wanted to provide for his kids and all kids in America, that they could be free from woke ideology and just free to be kids, free to live. So we don't co-parent with the government. We raise our children in truth and freedom, and that's how we can honor the memory of Charlie Kirk, and that's how we can win. Peace, everyone. Bye. Well, that was the recording, and listening to it it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I was texting with Jayme while it's on. She's like, I'm watching live. She's currently promoting something, and you'll see some exciting announcements from Jayme Franklin, CEO of the Conservateur. She is often on Fox News, Fox and Friends, and she's a great, eloquent speaker and passionate and gorgeous. And I wanted to show just a few images of, so here is the Conservateur, and some of the other ladies that are part of her organization. It operates, so there's a website, Instagram, Facebook, X account, and the interview that their feature interview for this month was regarding our friend Riley, who just had her baby. And I thought, look at these beautiful pictures to a young couple in love with their first baby, a girl. And I love what she says here. There's nothing that could have prepared me for a love like this. God has blessed us beyond belief. And her baby girl is Margot. I love it. I remember when my first child was laid upon my chest, and that's exactly my thoughts. Like, nothing can prepare you for the love that you feel. Nothing. You know, I was an older sister. I was always around kids. I babysat my whole life. But when your child laid upon your chest and, you know, the first cries and looks at you and just didn't know a love like that existed. It is so powerful, so strong. And I mean, what you wouldn't do for your kids. It's beautiful. I love looking at images like this. And Riley is such an amazing person. I've gotten to know her over the years, and I am so, so happy for her and her husband. So congratulations. And if you read The Conservateur, there is a wonderful, wonderful article written about Riley that she'd given this interview right before having her child, and the pictures are so pretty. I don't have them downloaded, but she's on the farm, and it's beautiful background, and they're really pretty. So these, instead of Vogue and Cosmopolitan, and all their gross titles and like basically a Sex in the City, like, oh, you go girl, like, because it's such a good thing to tell a woman, like, oh yeah, have sex with as many guys as you want, be just like a guy. I mean, really, yeah, that's feminism. That's how you promote women, tell them to be, I won't say the word, but that isn't how you promote happiness for women, and you're lying to yourself. Like, I'm raising 4 daughters, girls around all the time. This pretense that women are just like men is BS. It's not true. And it will not make a woman happy to, you know, and frankly, to say that this is just how men are, that's belittling men. I have raised a man, a good man. I am married to a good man. I have good men for brothers. I like you can't, don't say that, oh, all men are just like this and all women can be like this too. Those are the cultural messages sent, and those are the ones that we've got to, we've got to send different ones. You can't just cancel everything. Okay. You can't cancel everything. You've got to build things. You've got to make things. You've got to provide an alternative. So cancel, yes, cancel Netflix, cancel this, cancel that. Well, okay, first of all, you're not going to get young kids to cancel all forms of entertainment for the most part. All right. And they're going to look at you like you're Looney Tunes if that's all you're ever doing. You've got to create something better. And frankly, how hard is it when you look at the content on Netflix? Like there's some good shows, but most of it's just garbage. That's my biggest complaint, honestly. I'm an adult. I can watch what I want, but I don't want to watch most of what they put out. It's like this, the plot is what? It's depressing, violent, weird. I'm sorry that you someone hurt you, but could you not take it out on the rest of us in your horrible movies? I mean, why? So I made this point to my daughter. She was, there was a thing going on between me and my kids, and I was like, they have not made good movies in a very long time. And not like the great ones, not like Forrest Gump, not like, the original Star Wars, not like the original Avatar, not like Godfather, not like, just there's like Steven Spielberg movies, E.T., the original Indiana Jones, like all the original things, all the great movies. Like I grew up as an Xer, I think, during the time where movies were just so awesome. And romantic comedies were funny and cute and lighthearted. And at the end, they got married and they had a baby. And it wasn't a terrible thing. Now it's like the Disney princesses can't ever have a prince again. They can never, like, they all have to be, she bosses. I don't need no man. And, so it's, I mean, what's the message being sent? And like I said to Jayme, every sitcom used to have like 5 kids, 4 kids, 3 kids. Now, if there's a kid, they'll have all these sitcoms about just 2 married people with no kids, and they're married for a long time. And it's like, after a while, it's, and then maybe finally they have the one kid. It's just, it's just, that's where we need the different cultural messages, because they have an important impact on society. Entertainment, the culture, pop culture. You can't just pretend like it doesn't exist. It exists. And frankly, our kids, they have they have their Chromebooks, their iPads, their computers. So culture's getting to them. So what counterculture are we providing? And that's what the Conservateur is doing. And look at these ladies. Like, look, they're beautiful. This is a picture of young Gen Z conservative women. I mean, seriously, versus the alternative, can pull up some pictures of the alternative. This is something, this is what to be aspired to. Like, you've got just some happy, attractive young moms saying, I love the Lord, 27 married, and I have a kid, and I'm happy. We're living in an apartment right now, but we think we're going to buy a house real soon. We're working really hard, and we're enjoying life. And no, we're not going to be able to go to the Bahamas by ourselves and drink ourselves into a stupor. But how happy are that happiness versus bringing a child into the world and having joy and purpose and meaning? I mean, like Jordan Peterson says, like the whole like, oh yeah, I'm 54 and I'm so happy because I can do whatever I want whenever I want to. You're alone. And my daughter who's in nursing school was just telling me today, like the sad stories, what she sees with elderly, especially in nursing homes where there's no kids. It is not a pretty future because there's one thing that is for certain. You will be 70 one day. You will be 75, God willing, after what happened with Charlie, God willing that you are lucky enough to turn 70. But 70, 75, and without a spouse, without kids and a family, there'll be a day where you'll regret some of those choices. Again, the Conservateur, look, mega hat, beautiful, gorgeous. That's what I love about this, because Jayme gets it. We need an alternative to Cosmopolitan, to Vogue, to TikTok influencers. So, and I love that she is providing that. So, thank you, Jayme, and I look forward to seeing you in person really soon and doing a lot more. Moms for Liberty, working with our young moms. And you know what? They are going to be ready to go when it comes time for them to get to those school board meetings. They won't be like us. They're like, we know. We've had mentors. We have our moms, we have our friends, we have our Moms for Liberty, and same thing. We'll be working with Turning Point. We work with we have all sorts of great allies, and working together cooperatively to win. We have our eyes on the prize, and that to win this war against Western civilization, and to make sure that we leave a world better, leave a country that's in better shape. And my gosh, with everything that's going on, government shutdowns and everything, but there's no rest for the weary. And frankly, without, this is the stuff of life. This gives life meaning. Yeah, it's hard and tired, but this just gives, doing this kind of work, it's so good, it's so rewarding and so necessary. And so fight. I am going to, and I have to get on an airplane for DC very early tomorrow, so I don't know how much sleep I'm going to get. So as I close this episode of Moms for Liberty Unleashed with me, Scarlett Johnson, I love that name, I am going to show a video for the Moms for Liberty Joyful Warrior Summit. So come, I will be there, and I'm going to be doing lots of interviews. So I could be interviewing you, and we could be putting it right here. So, but you got to be there, and we're not done yet announcing speakers. So let's go. come on and join the moms. Join the moms. All right, everybody, let's go have a great weekend. And to my friends who I will not see tomorrow because of the shutdown, like I miss you. I'll see you soon. And I will be in Virginia for the Moms for Liberty Town Hall. Moms for Liberty Town Hall tomorrow night. So if you live in it's going to be in Fairfax, Virginia. So you are in that area. Actually, I want to make sure I get that right. I want to post a picture really fast. I'll put that at the end. But Moms for Liberty Town Hall, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears will be there. Katie Gorka will be there, and a lot of other folks, but I am really tired. I can't remember everyone. But tomorrow I will be in Virginia. I will be at the town hall, and we will be live streaming it as well. So tune in to all Moms for Liberty social media. We had 128,000 views for the Moms for Liberty Town Hall in Pennsylvania earlier this week. I expect big numbers for this next Virginia town hall, considering Virginia has been in the news. Lots of woke insanity in Virginia. So especially in, 4 largest school districts. So it's going to be epic. Hope to see you there. Have a good night. Bye, everyone.
Elena, what state are you from?
New York.
Hawaii.
I'm from Texas, Washington. I have my kids actually with me to do the march.
Wherever I go, odds are there is a Moms for Liberty group or a whole tribe in the room sounding off loud and proud.
And you could see the passion here because it's about supporting kids.
Pledge to each other that we will live like men and women who are determined to remain free.
I'm for parental rights all the way.